Well, now joining us from Boston for more analysis on the stories, Mr. Patrick Welch, a geopolitical analyst. I thank you very much, Mr. Welch, for joining us during this hour's top headlines. Let's go ahead and start off. And what's the most likely scenario from here? Do you see any other nations actually following Slovakia's lead, or will this actually rejection have the more core supporters push even harder?
Well, you have a final fight to the death. That means economically for Europe itself, I guess. So many have lightened their support that they moved from this $200 million seizure of assets to the $90 billion loan overnight, and that's like 1/3 of what they were considering. So it is constantly shrinking, and it constantly begs the larger question, which is why continue this war? And from the American perspective, they try to dump it by forcing Europe to finance it, but of course that means buying American weapons. Americans are still in NATO. The whole thing is like a version of cosplay. They're pretending that they can talk to each other to end a war that they have prosecuted against Russia, as if Europe talking to Ukraine, talking to the Trump administration is somehow diplomacy, when it's really just playing sleight of hand or circus magic.
And Mr. Welch, I also like to ask you, I mean, the Slovakia's prime minister has said that there's no military solution and that aid should shift to reconstruction. From a geopolitical standpoint, is this a realistic assessment in your opinion?
Of course. I mean, I think Slovakia has always been one of the more reticent supporters of the war, and is saying something out loud that everybody obviously knows. This is not an investment in peace for Ukraine. It is doubling down on continuing a war the West brought about by cornering Russia and forcing NATO onto its territory. There is no other solution than saying that this cannot be for more weapons, because the war has been over for quite a long time, and now the only thing remaining is drawing the final borders, and whether they only involve the 5 oblasts that are already constitutionally part of Russia, or whether they include Kharkiv, Odessa, and the other 2 in between. That's where we are in the reality stage. Europe is off in la-la land. Even though they pretend to be divorced from Trump, they're still playing the same song.
And Mr. Welch, lastly, this controversial plan to basically use a frozen Russian assets to actually finance Ukraine's military and economy, which indeed failed after 16 hours. Your assessment on this so-called plan?
Well, this is like everything old is new again. It's hard to keep talking about. They've been talking about, first of all, seizing the assets, using it for the last 4 years, have been threatening, we can always use it, we have this, we can use this. And so a lot of this is 16 hours of wasted time. It's an enormous, Belgium is right. It is an enormous risk, and it has legal ramifications. It was supposed to strangle Russia. Remember that the sanctions were part of this effort to completely obliterate Russia's economic status. And in fact, it had the opposite effect by driving it closer to Beijing and opening up all sorts of opportunities economically that the West never even thought to consider on its own. And so it's a weird question. There's nowhere to go for them. They just have to wake up and look in the mirror.
And with that, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Patrick Welch, a geopolitical analyst there, joining us from Boston. A pleasure to have you with us, sir.